Hello. This thing on? Hi. How are you? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Ern. I'm a buyer, seller, trader, collector, vendor, and grader. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things in the hobby. And today we're going to talk about grading and mega grading. We're going to talk about grading in this new era and how things are about to change, I think. So first things first, I have to ask, if you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff. It all helps. Oh, yeah. By the way, I haven't uploaded since Friday or Thursday, huh? If you tuned in last week to, I was going to say midweek for champs, Real Collectors, Fake Investors, thank you. That was a great, fun live stream. Really pushing my limits at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, but I'm committed to the cause. And it's fun. Myself and Jake every 2 weeks. Maybe I can convince him to do weekly. We'll see. It's a lot of work for him. Not so much for me. It was fun. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to do that every 2 weeks starting next Thursday after Card Party, which is this weekend. Okay. Sorry, I had a long weekend. Kind of tired. No, I'm not tired. Yeah, I'm not tired. Okay. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Grading. So, by the way, anything that I talk about moving forward, I will try my best to put links down in the description so you can follow along the conversation. I realize and take for granted sometimes that not everyone understands, promos and gem rates and PSA and like certain cards. And so I'm also very keen on being lazy on editing. And so it's just hard for me sometimes to like remember to like edit stuff into the video. It slows down the process. And so I will do my best to include links into every card, every example that I'm talking about in the description. And then I'm going to work also on timestamps because I know the videos are long. Not everyone has 35 minutes to burn, 30 minutes to burn to hear a random guy talk about cards in his car. So thank you. I forgot who left the suggestion in the comment below. I will definitely be doing that. Okay. So let's talk about Mega. I opened up a booster box on Friday, and it was honestly a great experience because the card quality was good. I will say that the new font and the new text on like the base EXs seems kind of weird. Looks really fake. Looks really like I don't know how to explain it. It looks like something you find off of Etsy, like fan made. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but the opening experience is good. And unfortunately, the best hit I pulled was I don't know what you call it. Is it the regular alt art or the regular SR version of Lucario? The one where he has like a shadowy background. Not the one that's like a $300 card or whatever it is. I pulled the one that's like a $30 card. So, um, you know, you win some, you lose some. I also pulled a Goom Goom, not Goomba, Goomshire Goom. See, I don't remember the name of Pokemon. The guy that looks like Trump. You know what I'm talking about with the hair. Anyway, pulled him. Pulled a Sceptile or a Helioptile, and pulled a. See, I already forget. My memory these days is not great. I pulled 4 or 5 character rares, art rares, whatever you call them in English, and it was good. It was a great experience. But the thing that stuck out to me the most, right, the print quality, and I looked at all the cards more or less just to see like how are they printed, what's the back look like, and I was actually amazed. I was like, oh, this actually looks pretty good. So I naturally went online and I also asked some friends in Discord, what have you all been seeing across the board? I think we can all say that the print quality of Mega so far has been good. Now, that's not. We don't know if that means for the entire era. We don't know if that means for the second wave of Mega, right? We don't know. We don't know what we don't know. But I can say that it's promising so far. And let me give you a bit of a history lesson on grading quality, gem rates, and condition of cards. Um, when Scarlet and Violet came out, gem rates, which is the percentage of cards that get a PSA 10, gem rates across the board were cut in some cases by half or more. 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, meaning 25% or less of cards that are graded at PSA actually get a PSA 10. Now, that's been the standard in Scarlet and Violet for a while now. But historically, in prior sets, let's take Crown Zenith, for example. Even to this day, many of the top cards, like the legendary dogs, like the gold V-Star Giratina, Arceus, they all have 50% or more, or sometimes 55% gem rates. And you're probably asking me, like, why does that matter? Why is that a thing? Why does this matter at all? Well, first, let me explain what gem rate is. Gem rate simply means the percentage of cards that were submitted that got a PSA 10. Now, oftentimes people get this confused. It does not mean the percentage of cards that you open, here the percentage of the cards that you open, here's the percentage that will get a PSA 10. Or here's the probability that it will get a PSA 10. Doesn't mean that at all. However, higher gem rates, right, do correlate strongly with quality of print. Now, this has been the case really since Sword and Shield, I would say, where if the card quality is good, let's just say good to great out of the pack, then you can assume that most of the cards submitted to PSA, also assuming that people who submit cards are not complete bozos, that the sorry, that's mean. The people who submit cards know what they're doing. You can also assume of the cards that are submitted, they are likely of good or great quality, right? And by comparison, when you look at Scarlet and Violet, because most of the cards generally do not come out of the pack looking good/great, you can likely assume that most of the cards that get submitted to PSA are probably that good to great. Now, again, it's not a causal relationship. It's not a one-to-one relationship. It correlates. And so in Scarlet and Violet, if you go out and buy random cards at a card show or like a card shop, right? There's a good chance that those cards are probably not going to gem mint 10, because the general condition of the cards out of the pack are usually not PSA 10s or even strong PSA 9s, right? And so what happens in the ecosystem is that during Scarlet and Violet, you can go out and buy singles. Most of the singles are probably not worth grading, right? Probability wise. And as such, you can assume that the gem rate of a card, let's say Magikarp, which I think is like still 15%, right? If you go out in the wild and buy raw Magikarps, they're probably not going to be PSA 10. Now that we're entering Mega, and now that we know, based on the small sample size we have, that print quality is great, the cards that you find in the wild, right, you can likely assume they're probably going to be good to great condition. Now, I say likely and not definitely, because these things are not black and white. Like there's like probability that comes into play here. But if most of the cards that are printed are good/great, you can assume most of the cards that you find in the wild are probably good/great. Versus if most of the cards are not good/great, maybe they're okay/good, then most of the cards in the wild you're going to find are okay/good. So let me just clear up that distinction. Sword and Shield had the higher gem rate of cards across most of the sets, especially Crown Zenith. Scarlet and Violet had the lower gem rate across basically every single set. Basically every single set is like, you pull a card out of a pack and like there's a good chance it's not going to PSA 10. That's usually how it works. And now we're entering an era when we're going back to Sword and Shield gem rates. And here's the kicker. We were not in a boom when Sword and Shield was hot, when Sword and Shield was the main set. We were in a boom over the last year when Scarlet and Violet was in play. And so we have not actually experienced a market where there's a ton of demand for the cards overall. There's a ton of Gem Mint 10 cards straight out of a new era, straight out of a new set. And so what this concoction is building up is, in the short to midterm, I don't think that much is going to change, right? I think people are going to grade. We're going to get pop reports. I do think you're going to see a lot of cards rise very quickly as people start to exhibit the same behaviors as they did before with Scarlet and Violet PSA 10s. But as the sets and eras go on, as long as they keep printing, I have this sneaky suspicion slash theory that we're not going to see as high of peaks in PSA 10 cards than we did in Scarlet and Violet. Now, if you just kind of do like napkin math, right? It kind of makes sense because Magikarp only has what? 1,500? No, I think 3,300. 3,300 PSA 10s. And its overall gem rate is really low at 15%, right? So if you really want that card, there are only so many available in the market. So it's ripe for people to, one, manipulate the market, but also there's just not that many, right? And so the influence that someone has on market price if they were to buy is much greater than a card that has higher population. I think in the short to midterm, again, we're going to be in grading, the equivalent of grading paradise, grading heaven. There's going to be so many opportunities to buy cards and grade them. If you're new, I'm kind of spilling the beans. You should probably look into grading because this era is likely going to give you better chances to get PSA 10s, which are going to help you sell, and you're going to get premium on your cards. And I've been pretty vocal about this. Grading is like the ultimate hack. It's like the best way to really, for me at least, to grow your collection and to expand your card net worth. Why is this such a big deal? I think oh my God, people are going to roast me for this. I think this is one of the variables or card climates that sets us up to have a slowdown in the future, right? You got to think through a lot of the money that's coming in, right? It's people who want the hottest stuff, the stuff that's not easy to obtain, the stuff that's rising in price, the stuff that is rare, the stuff that is lower pop, right? These are all variables that matter to someone who has a fresh bag of money and who wants to buy into a market and get like the creme de la creme, right? I think that's going to change a lot because there's just going to be way more population of a lot of the top cards. And that's like a little bit different. Gotta let this guy in. You're welcome, sir. Hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I believe there's going to be a major surplus of PSA 10s for top cards in this era in English compared to other sets. And this is just my guess. I'm not going to sit here and say like, well, based on this data, and like we've done the research and we sat down and put everything in a this is my assumption going in. I don't know what's going to happen long term. Print run and print size and how many cards come to market and all that's all interrelated, right? But I can tell you that when card quality is good, people who buy singles are going to have a field day. You can confidently go to shows, buy things at a percentage, not have to worry so much about this vendor or that vendor, or this is being pre-graded or this is being sold because it's light played. Like a lot of that probability for those things to happen, it goes lower. I'm not going to say it's gone, but it goes lower. And so, it's going to be interesting to see because we were not in this type of market when Crown Zenith was active, when Crown Zenith was popular, right? Crown Zenith was printed. There's so much of it printed to the point where you could buy for like less than like $2.50 a pack. Sam's Club had that bundle for like a year and people would kind of like balk at it, like, they still have it. Like, why would you want it? The pop reports we see now from Crown Zenith are from the aftermath of all that supply. And the PSA 10s that we see are the aftermath from that supply. And I have to imagine that, I don't know. Like, I really don't think this market can absorb 5,000 copies of the Lucario and the Gardevoir in a PSA 10 coming to market in the next 6 months. Maybe less. 6 months? 6 months. Let's say 6 months. 6 months seems doable. Prismatic evolutions, I think the Umbreon's only like sub 3,000, and it's been 9 months, right? But Prismatic Evolutions is Scarlet and Violet print quality. I pulled an Umbreon. It looked good, minus this big zit-sized white chip on the corner on the bottom right, I think. And I sent it in for express grading, and I knew it was going to come back, and the grader said white dot bottom right corner. Everything else on my card was perfect except for that dot. But even then, like you go look at the gem rate of Umbreon today, it's not good. It's not great compared to the cards in Crown Zenith or Cards and Sword and Shield. Cards and Sword and Shield. So yeah, I don't know. I this is I'm not calling this out for people to get FOMO and freak out and just to lose their minds about what's going to come. I'm calling this out so people can understand like these are the things that to pay attention to as we continue to have this crazy bull market and craziness where nobody thinks that the market can slow down. And irrational exuberance, like when you are so confident and arrogant that you don't think things can turn the other way, that's when you most will be hit the worst. What? That's when it's going to hit you the worst. So, does it change my day to day? Well, it kind of does because I'm going to card party and I'm going to another card show this month. I'm going to source singles. I am basically not going to buy anything but singles from Mega, at least for the time being. And then also Phantasmal Flames. Like I see that window of opportunity as clear as day. It'll be for at least 3 or 6 months if I had to guess. And I'm going to assume the market cannot absorb all the PSA 10s coming to market. That's my assumption. It doesn't change what I do long term, right? And I think that's the key thing as I talk about this. You can have a long term mindset, how you're going to engage in the hobby, but how you operate within the 3, 6, 12-month timeframes is super critical for growing. And I'm reprioritizing what I think is going to work. And even if I'm wrong, right? It won't really matter because I'm still going after the grading plays. I'm still going after graded cards. That's where I make most of my revenue, my card money anyway. And so I kind of like I'm in this weird win-win position because if what I'm saying doesn't come true, the market will still buy the PSA 10s and I'm going to make good money, good margin. If what I'm saying does come true, I'm only operating with this 3 to 6 month time frame mindset. And so I'll be able to grade, get them back, sell, and I'll be good. And so like I think the moral of all of this is can you put yourself in a position where it's win-win? No matter what happens, it's win-win for you. And one thing I look at when I look at people like streamer people with like streaming operations, right? People who sell packs, people who like Alex from Nostalgianomics, Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles, a bunch of these different stores and operations. They're always in a win-win position because they're buying packs at a discount for the current market, right? So I think Dan's been pretty open about having like several thousand, if not 10,000 plus packs of a given set. He's buying them at whatever percentage of market, 85, 90% if I imagine. Even if Prismatic doesn't pump to the moon like people expect it to, he's still in good shape because he bought them at a percentage of market. But if Prismatic also pumps to the moon, he's in even better shape because he bought a bunch cheap and below market. And so being in that position when you're always going to benefit no matter what happens with the market, man, that is like the perfect utopian position scenario for you to be in because you don't have anything to fear, right? And you're not working off of like you're not operating where a lot of tension and anxiety is being built up based on what you do. And I have to say, like, I've benefited a lot from doing the whole investing thing, right? I don't really invest too much these days compared to how much I used to. I did buy cases of Surging Sparks, there's sets here and there, but like in terms of the volume of that I do, it's not that much, right? I can't imagine confidently parking money into product today. Sorry, I can't imagine parking money into product today and not feeling some level of anxiety. It's my honest truth. It's how I honestly feel. I just I don't think I could do it confidently because I don't think this current climate is like what it used to be. And you can say like, oh well, Destin Rivals, $500 a box. What do you mean? You're crazy. Yeah, but like, is that going to happen for every set? I need to see that happen at least 2 or 3 more times to convince myself to buy boxes at 250, 300 out of the gate. Mega, we'll see. Like, I I don't think the cards in Mega, even though I really like this set. Don't don't get this twisted. I really like Mega. I don't think the cards though are strong enough to carry that box to go up to 500 to 1,000. Right? When you're looking at Destin Rivals, Jake's Jodo Jake said he bought his Garchomp at like 550. It's already like 800 in PSA 10. The Mewtwo, I think I saw last sale of like 1,700. Right? And those cards are like strong Pokemon, iconic Pokemon, but they are amazing. They're amazing top cards in an amazing set, right? Mega has great looking cards. I like the Venusaur, I like the Lucario, I like the gold cards, I like a lot of different cards. But I don't get the same, like I want to grunt, like oomph, than I do with the cards in Destin Rivals. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, win-win situations. It's honestly why I grade. I grade because like I'm not grading junk. I'm not buying like common cards or uncommon cards or anything like that. I'm grading things that I know will get me at least 30, 50% or more premium in a PSA 10. But I'm also grading things I know and confident that no matter what the outcome is, I'm probably not going to get absolutely wrecked. And, we had someone on the show last week. It was kind of cool to say I have a show. Huh. Jake, if you're watching, I know you are. We should do it weekly. Let me convince you. How someone asked, like, how do you decide who to grade with, CGC or PSA? And at the end of the day, whoever you decide to grade with, the most important part is, do you feel confident that you can absorb the risk that you're going to take if they give you the grades that you don't want? And I think when you're smaller or trying to learn how to grade and you're only doing like so much volume, you tend to be pickier, and as you should. But sometimes that pickiness leads to people not making. Sometimes that pickiness leads to indecision, and people to be too afraid to potentially get a PSA 9 or a PSA 8. And I grade a lot of cards. Some of them I will send, and I know that has a high likelihood to not be a 10. But I also know that if I'm able to grade it in a 9, I can absorb what the expected value is. Maybe it sells at a loss. But I also know in some cases, it's actually easier to sell. It can be a lot easier to sell a graded card in a 9 than it can be raw, depending on what platform you use and how you structure your business. And so in that case, I've kind of put myself in my own version of a win-win scenario where the loss is not going to hurt that bad. And in fact, the loss has I have a way of exiting the loss quickly and seamlessly. So anyway, Gradient Mega. I don't know. I get asked often. So how do I grow? Like, what do I look at? How do I figure out what to grade? I just spilled the sauce for you. This is going to be a great area to grade. Unless we see otherwise with Wave 2 and Mega 1, unless you see otherwise with Phantasmal Flames. I have a feeling they've corrected this and it's going to change the landscape of grading in PSA 10s for the foreseeable future. So there you go. That's your tip of the day, tip of the week. Go have at it, but also stay out of my way. A couple things I bought this weekend. I bought 20 copies of the Bulbasaur from the Enhanced Booster Box. Criminally underrated. Can I say that? So on Friday, I was texting back and forth with Jake. It was actually cheaper than the regular IR in the set without the stamp. And that makes no sense to me. That, stamps, people love stamps. That made no sense to me. That just showed, let me just air this out. That just showed to me how early we still are in maybe let's say unoptimized we are and how people think about the market. Because that price for that promo in relation to the regular IR without the stamp, it was like that for like 8 to 12 hours. And I was buying it throughout the day, right? I was buying a handful here, a handful there. And so, if you truly believe there's not a lot of opportunity, or you truly believe like, oh, you're never going to get ahead, I'm telling you, once you really learn markets, arbitrage, singles, what to look out for, you know, pay attention to like what's the current state of grading, like these all things stitched together. And I'm not going to say I'm going to get all these cards they're going to PSA 10, but I'm fairly confident these cards are probably going to be at least more gradable than the ones I would buy from Scarlet and Violet in the same method. So there's opportunity. There's a lot. There's a lot out there. If you just pay attention to the very specifics, single cards, certain promos, certain releases, and if you time it just right. Now, this promo now is pushing like 35, $40, I think. Last I checked yesterday afternoon. And so it's not as obvious now, but that window was there if you had spent the time and looked. Anyway, that's all I got. 27 minutes on a Monday. Not bad. Let me know what you think. Will you be grading throughout Mega? Do you believe in gem rate? I mean, you don't have to believe in it. It's kind of just a thing. I'm eager to hear from you. I hope you had a wonderful weekend of polls, and I hope you're enjoying Mega. I definitely am. And that's it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.